Welcome everyone to DC's capacity building sports betting presentation, betting on small business. With nothing, I'm actually going to pass it off to Craig, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate it. So I'd like to welcome everyone in the DC area and beyond for joining the fourth installment of our Betting on Small Business Power Hour, our capacity building in the arena of sports betting, kind of a partnership with the University of Nevada, Las Vegas International Center for Gaming Regulation, along with the Washington, D.C. Lottery and the Washington, D.C. Department of Small and Local Business Development. So it's, again, been our privilege and pleasure to be a part of this presentation over the last few months. So we're excited to be here again for the final one for the summer and moving into fall. So again, I know there's a lot of some familiar faces here, but I do want to just talk a little bit about the center very briefly before we get into our guest speaker today. So I'll tell you just a bit about the International Center for Gaming Regulation. As an individual center, we've been around about 4 years now, but we've been part of the International Gaming Institute, which researches all aspects of gaming and hospitality management for about 25 years. We're the only academically accredited institute that's dedicated to the study of gaming and regulations. Again, our primary objective involves convening stakeholders to get together and talk about best practices, research, and of course, industry education as we're doing today. We've served over 2,300 students in over 150 jurisdictions, both domestically and worldwide in over 40 countries. And so we like to pull in as many professionals and experts in the fields of gaming regulation as possible to discuss a lot of these topics with you. So again, welcome everyone. It's our pleasure to be here with you today. So what I'd like to do is, again, introduce myself. My name's Craig Ferreira. I'm operations and marketing at the UNLV International Center for Gaming Regulation. On that screen, you see two men. One is attractive and one is me. So the good-looking man on that screen is our guest host today, Vinny Magliulo, who's been the sportsbook director for Gone Gaming and vice president of corporate relations for Las Vegas Dissemination Company. And we'd like to welcome Vinny to our conversation today as we are going to talk about his journey through his career and how he got started in the world of sports betting. So welcome, Vinny, to the presentation.
Craig, good to be with you. Thank you, Michael, and all the other participants here. It's always a privilege to get involved with anything that UNLV does. Having attended the university when I first came to town, when I transferred from junior college in New York to UNLV, and then subsequently paid even more tuition when my kids went there and graduated. It's always a pleasure to be involved and to be asked. So I'm very honored today. And let me just kind of give you a little bit of my background. I've been in the gaming industry here in Las Vegas since 1978. I began as a casino dealer and floorman, pit boss. And as sports wagering became more popular, it was one of the principal growth areas in the industry, particularly back in the 1980s. One of the reasons for that is that strip resorts started to add sports books to their casino floor operations. The first strip casino that had a race and sports book was the old Stardust, which is no longer there because we have such a propensity here for sentiment that when something gets old, we blow it up and we level it and build a new resort. So that's going to be the location of Resorts World across just a little across the street and a bit north of Wynn Las Vegas and Encore. So that property was the first. I worked for Michael Gone at the time at the Barbary Coast, which is now the Cromwell, and Michael had what I consider to be the first cross training program here in Las Vegas. And that cross training program was this: make sure you're good at what I hired you for, and then go learn what you want. And what I did was, having not only an interest in sports, but a knowledge of sports betting, uh, I spent my breaks in the sports book and learned all the aspects of that operation. It came very natural to me. I'm sure this will shock a lot of you. I was born and raised in Brooklyn and Long Island, and had a parochial education. And with a name like Vinny, I guess my career path was preordained, so to speak. Uh, every fundraiser we ever had involved gambling. We had bingo, Vegas nights, lotteries, raffles, all of the above. So it was a natural progression for me, and it was the new math that I understood. I didn't particularly understand a squared times b squared equals c squared, but I certainly knew that I knew the value of 3.5 as opposed to 3. So all that said, I put it together. Sportsbooks began to expand. One of the reasons was the folks the visitors that were coming to Las Vegas, they wanted that experience, and they especially across the street from where I was working at the time, at the Barbary Coast, at Caesar's Palace, that all had major fights and special events. And what would happen is, at Caesar's Palace, all of their patrons, their high rollers, on the day of a fight, especially, and on Sundays during football season in particular, all their high rollers would walk across the street to the Barbary Coast and bet with Michael Gaughan. So a bell went off, and they said, "Wow, how do we get involved with this?" Well, they had much higher overhead. Well, what also happened, and particularly in 1983, the federal gaming tax on sports wagers was lowered to its current level of 0.25%. Prior to 1983, it was 2%, and prior to 1974, it was actually 10%. So it became much more profitable. And then when folks started to incorporate it in the overall property, gaming, entertainment, dining, shopping experience, it took off. And now you have a situation where a sports book is as important an amenity.
Whoops, we might have just lost you, Vinny, for a second there. Want to have you check your microphone there, Vinny, just to make sure you didn't accidentally mute yourself. So we might have just lost Vinny. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me, Vinny. We cannot hear you currently, so we might just have you plug in and plug back out for just a moment. Give us 1 second to troubleshoot this, folks. Sorry for the delay. So, Vinny, we are not able to hear you. Is everyone else, Michael, can you confirm that you can't hear him either?
No, I can't hear him, but he still seems to be presenting.
Let me try to get him a message here to see if he can see this. So, Vinny, I'm hoping that you can still hear me. We could not hear you for about the last 60 seconds or so, so we might need you to try to either maybe re-enter the meeting or have you do a little reset so we can get you back online. I'm wondering if he can't hear me either. So give me one moment, gang. Sorry. So hopefully you can hear this, Vinny, but we can't hear you. So we'll see if we can get Vinny to kind of exit out and exit back in. Just one moment, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Okay, everyone, I got a hold of Vinny. He's going to log off. We apologize for that. He had some technical difficulty on his end. He's going to log off and log back into the meeting, and we'll see if we can hear you, Vinny, at all. Go ahead and speak. You're on. There you go. Go ahead and speak, Vinny.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Okay.
Where did I cut off? Geez, I hope I wasn't. I thought I was putting everybody to sleep.
No, it's okay.
Where did I cut off?
I think we were kind of transitioning to how the Caesars, with the different tax rates, federal tax rates on gaming, and then with their higher overhead, the lower tax rates made it more feasible for other sports books to get involved in the sports betting, or more other casinos to get involved in sports betting.
Yes. So in 1983, the federal tax on sports wagers was lowered to its current rate of 0.25, and it was 2% prior to that from 1974 to 1983. Before 1974 was actually 10%. So the growth really came, and the career growth for me came at that point because they were looking for qualified, licensable folks to run operations. So I got a call from some friends who were across the street at Caesar's Palace, and I went to work at Caesar's Palace in August of 1986. Worked my way up to eventually being the vice president of race and sports operations there until 2000. Then I consulted on Steve Wynn's project that I mentioned earlier, Wynn Las Vegas, Wynn and Encore. Consulted and then was hired by Steve Wynn to design and then open and operate Wynn Las Vegas, and now and then came back to work for the Gone family, where I presently am now. So, and our philosophy at Gone with the Gones at South Point and Gone Gaming is pretty simple. It's make sure again have it as a part of the overall property experience. It's not a standalone opportunity, and that's what works for us. The picture you see now is a photo in the center is a picture of the sports book at the South Point, and then that's probably a familiar face that you see to the right in front of that VSiN desk. That VSiN standing for Vegas Stats and Information Network. That is Brent Musburger. His family got a hold of me in 2016, and we had been doing a weekly show out of the South Point on one of the Discovery networks, Velocity, that tried to bring folks behind the counter and make them have more of an awareness of sports wagering. The Musburgers asked me where I would recommend taking it, and they knew that I had worked at Caesars and at Wynn, and I said, nothing against those properties, but there's only one place I would take it, because I know there's one place that will get a very quick answer. Owner-operator Michael Gaughan at the South Point. It took me and my buddy Jimmy Vaccaro about 7 minutes to convince Michael Gaughan of the opportunity for the South Point to be the point of reference for legal sports wagering in North America, and subsequently for that Super Bowl in 2017 is when the Vegas Stats and Information Network launched the sports book. It's right on the casino floor, right adjacent to the sports book. Craig, you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, actually, everything that we talk about is in real time. I actually had the idea in 1987 at Caesar's Palace, but it didn't go anywhere. So it took me a couple of years from 1987 to convince a casino operator to do it. And so it's expanded. And of course, now here we are post-PASPA, where there are over 20 states that have legal sports wagering, but the network continues to grow because it's credible information that gives folks a behind-the-scenes look at what takes place on our side of the counter.
And Vinny, it really came to fruition because of the need for this type of information and this type of content. And so it really wasn't, VSiN only happens because people really crave this information, and they didn't have a source prior to VSiN, really.
Yeah, the thing about it is, and again, we welcome. I have a lot of colleagues and friends that work for other companies besides the Gaughans, and we incorporate interviews with them on a daily and a weekly basis. What's up? Listen, everybody has an opinion. There are two things in this world that everybody has an opinion on: politics and sports. And so, that said, if you were to ask someone who the Attorney General of the United States is, you asked 100 people, give me Craig, how many people are going to give that answer? Right? Go high.
Exactly. Right.
Right. Go high. Say 75.
Right.
Michael, how many people you think would give the right answer?
Outside of DC?
Yeah.
Maybe 50.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. If you ask those same 100 people who's going to win the Super Bowl in February, they're going to get 110 answers, and there's only 100 of them in the room. So it's a situation where people wanted credible information, and we try to take the approach. We don't only cater to professionals. The balance that we try, especially my colleagues and I, we provide is talking to the novice, casual bettor, as well as the more experienced and professional bettor, and make them realize that you want it to be informative and entertaining all at the same time.
And and that's great, Vinny, and that's really what you need to do to really have as wide of expansive audience as possible. I want to talk about challenges to operating a sports book, because I think that this really kind of correlates, especially to small business operators. And I listed a few here that I think we can kind of talk about, and I think a lot of these really do directly relate to anyone who is trying to start a business or get into creating a business that is reaching out for new markets and new customers. And the first one that you've talked about, especially at the South Point, is really understanding the role that, say, a sportsbook plays into the overall casino property. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about kind of what that means.
Yeah, so whatever the endeavor, and to the folks that are participating today, obviously there are other aspects to their business, if I understand it correctly. So what you want to do is incorporate the sports wagering side of it as an amenity to the overall experience. I mean, obviously, the South Point is a pretty sizable example, but to any endeavor that's going to offer sports wagering, how is it going to enhance your overall operation? How is it going to create more patronage? And how is it going to be profitable, right? So you want to make sure that you try to, as an operator, understand it, have whoever it is you're partnering with or is overseeing it is experienced enough and is going to understand your perspective of it and protect your customer information. Oftentimes, you have a situation where you'll outsource your whatever, in this case, it's a sports book, right? But those patrons are your patrons. Are they being treated fairly? Are they being protected in terms of all of the regulatory aspects? Are they enjoying your facility more because you have this amenity? Are they staffing it properly? Are you staffing it properly? Do your folks understand what the rules, the regulations, and the house rules are? So your theme, your design, all the things that you have on it, your technology, is it technology that's scalable and expandable to add even more of your operation to that particular platform? And of course, risk management. It needs to be profitable. So now, again, in the early parts of the call today, I talked about how sometimes the house doesn't always win on a given day or a given week. But over the course of time, over the course of a year, the house will be profitable. The math is in your favor if it's managed properly and it's managed within the overall theme and philosophy of the business that it's part of.
Great, thank you, Vinny. That's some good points. And you talked a little bit about PASPA, and that was huge when the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act. For those that might not be familiar with that term that we hear a lot, that passed in 1992. It was repealed in 2018. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what have you seen some of the biggest changes to sports betting since the repeal of PASPA a couple of years ago? And one of the things that we talked about the other day was just the influence in the leagues and media. So can you talk a little bit about that, Vinny?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So PASPA was passed in 1992. It was spearheaded by, at the time, Senator Bill Bradley, who, when I was a kid, he was one of my childhood heroes. I was a huge Knicks fan, and they had those great early 70s teams. And here he is now trying to put me in business in 1992. But I understood where the senator was coming from. And, at the time, I was in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas had the exclusive on legal sports wagering. Nevada had the exclusive on legal sports wagering in the United States. And it was really the one distinct marketing advantage that Nevada had for the longest time, because gaming, table games, slots, and things were expanding around the country. So now PASPA comes along, and you're thinking, well, is it going to hurt Nevada? We took the opposite approach. We took the optimistic approach, and really the smart business approach, and that was to say, okay, we can expand beyond Nevada for helping folks. As I mentioned earlier, we outsource our product to several Native American locations in New Mexico and Oregon right now, and we're having discussions with others. You want to embrace it, because the other part is, at the time, sports wagering was becoming more mainstream. Well, now it is mainstream, and again, with 20 states, 20 plus states now offering some form of sports wagering, you can see its popularity. So what's happening is creating more business, more patrons, because they're more familiar with it. And then still, when things, get better nationally in terms of obviously the pandemic and everything, they'll want that Las Vegas experience, and we're certainly going to be able to provide that. But the biggest change is, and you've got it on the screen, Craig, you hit a key point here. There was a long time where the Vinnies of the world were viewed by the professional sports leagues and the NCAA publicly as really quite pariahs. Well, now I don't know if we're celebrity chefs or rock stars because everybody wants to know about what the number is. You look at the NFL and the fact that not only have they partnered with gaming companies, we've got a professional team here. The NHL took the lead on it with Gary Bettman a few years ago, and we've got the Golden Knights who just had their third consecutive successful season. You see the University of Colorado University made a deal with a gaming company known as PointsBet. And of course, DraftKings has been around for a long time, mainly as a fantasy sports provider. But you'll see them get, I think, into, they have their app in several states now, notably New York, New Jersey. They will get involved, I think, here in Nevada at some point. So I think the biggest changes is that the realization that people wanted sports wagering, and the leagues have realized that, and they've embraced it. Listen, there was a good reason all those years when there was a blowout on Sunday night or Monday night football, and the viewership was still high when the game's outcome was pretty much decided because somebody had a ticket on there. A lot of people had tickets on those games, and whether it was the final score in terms of the point spread or the final score in terms of the total, the over and under on the game, had an impact on it. So I can assure you that we help contribute to that viewership quite a bit.
And that really is it's a key point because we know in some of these previous presentations we've done that if you have something wagered on the game, you're going to be that much more engaged and interested in the game, to where that Thursday night blowout game between two teams that aren't your favorites, you're suddenly very much vested in that game. Sure. Because you've got a wager on it.
Here's a great, you bring up a great point, good, not to interrupt you, but you look at tonight's game, and I don't know if there are any Jaguar or Dolphin fans on the call, and this is not a knock on them, but let's look at it. We have a game tonight between two teams that between them have one win in the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, it may not be a very sexy matchup to a lot of people. It's certainly not the Sunday night game between the Packers and the Saints, right? But what it is a standalone game here. And if the fact that this game is a standalone game tonight and will be the betting focus tonight, even more so than the Lakers and Nuggets NBA playoff game, which will be a close second. The fact of the matter is that the fact that this is a game tonight by itself and it's an NFL game, the handle on it, the amount bet on the game, will be about 4 times higher than it would normally be. Let's say this game was in the middle of the 1 o'clock Eastern time zone games on Sunday. It would kind of get lost in that NFL shuffle and that schedule compared to what it's going to do tonight.
Yeah, and it really makes it stand out. And so I want to talk a little bit more, Vinny. I want to jump into a little bit more detail about the VSiN story, and only because I think that the story of how you kind of created VSiN really correlates to companies and small businesses that are looking to either get into sports betting or to basically just start a small business, because you really kind of approached this with a startup mentality. And for those of you who don't know, there's a very large television studio right in the middle of a casino. And if anyone knows the math, a television studio that takes up that much space in a casino is usually not good for business, right, Vinny?
Well, here's what I can tell you. Where this studio sits on the casino floor at the South Point, at one time housed 50 slot machines. So you have to think about that, and the average, coin in and win amount on a slot machine. So now you multiply that not only by, say, 50, but now by almost 4 years. So the fact that it's there, it's obviously paid its dividend. What is its dividend? It's the most credible legal source and for that information. What makes it legal is that everything that we talk about, and of course, those are my colleagues there in that bottom right picture there. That's Brent Musburger in the center to my left, and then Chris Andrews, the director, and Jimmy Vaccaro, who the three of us have known each other over 40 years, making the numbers and booking the games at the South Point. So the quick story of this is, again, I'll go back to my days at Caesars, where all this coverage was, especially when we had a major fight. Everybody wanted to know what the number was on the fight. What was the betting on going? How was it going on the fight? Well, when I went to Michael Gaughan all these years later, 30 years later, again, he got it because he said, listen, I have a lot of business in the book. I said, yes, but now your book is going to be the credible source for legal and sports wagering in North America, and it's accurate, and it's a point of reference. It's a teaching tool. And lo and behold, now, if you notice, ESPN has just opened a studio north on Las Vegas Boulevard at the Link, across from Caesars Palace. They've partnered with that parent company now, which is El Dorado Resorts, to have a similar operation such as this. VSiN has also got studios in Chicago now, and we'll have a second. There'll be a second VSiN studio at Derek Stevens Circa downtown starting next month, and then there are remotes done around the country, and eventually on the East Coast, and I believe they're in discussions to have one in the Washington, D.C. area with one of the operators there. So you want that information. You break down those barriers and give people credible information from a credible source or sources, and all it does is create more business.
Yeah, and it's really important for people wanting to get into the sports betting ecosystem, Vinny, to make sure that they do partner with companies that are credible, legitimate, that have experience, because the last thing in the world you want to do is connect yourself or be affiliated with, for lack of a better word, a fly-by-night operation that could just lead you astray. You really want to go for those solid organizations to partner with.
Well, there are two aspects, Craig, and you bring up an extremely important one. Obviously, your vetting is an important part of that process, right? Of who any partner that you do business with. You want to make sure that that you do your homework there, and you do have options now with sports wagering. South Point being one of them. Full disclosure, like I said, we are licensed in several jurisdictions, and we continue to look for more business and expansion. But the other part is the protection of your customer information. You know, the most important thing you have as a business owner is your reputation, your people, your staff, and your customers. What's happened a lot of times with certain operators is because let's face it, you're going to have an entity that has access to your database. That's critical, and you want to make sure that integral part is protected. And how are you addressing it with your potential or existing partner? And make sure that partner, again, I'll go back to the point I made earlier, understands what your culture is, what your business philosophy is, and that it is your business, it is your company. They are there to help enhance it. And I think that's the most important thing, that you have that kind of rapport, that it is truly a partnership, and it's not a situation where only one side benefits, because if only one side benefits, the other side doesn't. And at the end of the day, both sides will suffer.
Right, exactly. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit here, Vinny. And when we talk about small businesses, startups, things in that nature, I want to kind of correlate kind of new business trends and sports betting trends, because I think the discussion we had the other day is there's a lot of similarities to some things. And we talked about three different things. We talked about familiarizing yourself with the industry, partnerships, which we talked a little bit about just now, and then kind of advertising, marketing potentials, and embracing technology. So from a sports betting perspective, maybe, and even across new businesses, how important is it really for people to understand the business that they're getting into?
Well, I think what you want to do is, listen, I'm not going to advocate that everybody has to go out and make bets and do it, but you want to familiarize yourself with the basics of it, right? Because you're going to have to assist customers and make sure that your partner is assisting them in a friendly, accurate, and patient way. Because a lot of folks they need to understand how to do things. You want to familiarize yourselves with the particular rules. There's a few, there are some rules that are the same. There are some that are not. Understand what is the oversight of the operation? Who is the oversight of a particular jurisdiction, and what exactly and when do they get involved if there's a customer dispute? Because there's customer protection there. There has to be protection for both the customer and the operator. But also, what are you getting out of it? So, in other words, if you outsource your sports feature, well, how is that going to benefit you? Are you going to be able to, for instance, advertise your business on their app? Should be able to, right? There should be some cross promotion there. So, for instance, if it's, Craig's sports service at a local business in Washington, D.C., for instance, well, shouldn't it be brought to you by, Michael Bing's business, right? There should be
Right.
recognition. There should be, I think the more that there's a two-way street, then the more everybody is going to benefit. And then what types of cross promotions can there be? It can't just be a cross promotion for one and not the other.
And that's critical, Vinny, because I think a lot of, especially new businesses and small businesses, really do need to think about leveraging relationships and partnerships to help get their business off the ground. And one thing that you see a lot of course, this is the same image on the left side that I've used before, is embracing technology. And that is something that modern sports books, especially here in Las Vegas and other states, the mobile aspect, they're not shying away from that, and neither should new business, because technology is really where the driving force of new business and sports betting.
It's a critical point you bring up, Craig, because what this does is it makes this is a betting kiosk in essence, right? It's an opportunity. Everybody has a cell phone. So how is your business benefiting from that cell phone, from this kiosk that's in the palm of your hand? Not just on the sports app. What promotions, what other cross promotions are you offering at your business that could create either immediate impulse purchasing opportunities or opportunities for a special event you have coming down the road, a sale up, before you know what, the holidays are going to be here, and things like that. So I think it's critical that you want to make sure that there has to be constant communication between you and that provider. Oftentimes what happens is businesses, and they can be small, they can be medium, they can be full-scale operations, even some casinos, they literally turn it over to a provider and they outsource it, and then it's just kind of watching their hand, and that's it. Well, wait a second. How does your customer like it? Are you getting, you don't have to have a full-blown focus group, but are you sitting amongst your patrons listening to what their reaction is compared to the reaction they're having to the rest of your operation? So I think it's important for folks to understand. Again, I go back, you circle right back to the beginning, is it enhancing and making my overall business profitable and better?
Perfect. So I want to touch, we talked a little bit about it, but I want to kind of tackle it in a little bit more detail. And it's the trend of the media in sports betting. And I think in conversations that we've had, Vinny, we've talked about the leagues already, but also how much more entertainment is being embraced and content is being embraced around sports betting. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because again, this is another chance where small businesses not only can provide services, but also content is highly important depending on the business that they're in, especially in the world of sports betting.
Yeah, I think when you look at sports betting now is part of the broadcast anymore, right? I mean, it's openly discussed who the favorite is, what the underdog is. There's a reference. I think as time goes by, it'll be even promoted even more so on the broadcast. You'll see it as part of the broadcast. I think down the road you're going to be able to interact with with it on the actual broadcast screen. I think what you want to understand is and take and embrace is you've got. Let's face it, it is entertainment. What sports is entertainment. It's a business, but it's part of the entertainment business. Gaming is a part of entertainment. This is what people want and what people are migrating to, and what they want is they want a fair game, they want an honest game, and they want it to be a part of their experience with that part of the entertainment, and but also promote stay within their means, right? You don't want folks to get to overindulge, just like anything else. But if you promote it as all of that coming together, then I think you've got yourself a winner.
Absolutely. The other thing that we're seeing is that as more content is being produced, there's also so many different channels, from television to live streaming to social media to apps, and so there's still opportunity there for new businesses to kind of look at how they want to distribute their content. There's just so much out there, and one thing about sports betting is there's really no barriers.
Well, that's a great point. It's an important point, because what you want to do is, again, so who you partner with, what is their technology, what is their plan, how are they offered, right? Not only what they're offering, but how is it being offered? You want it on as many and as diverse a number of platforms as possible, right? Because technology continues to change. What is their scalability? How's it maintained? Is it maintained here in the United States, or is it maintained somewhere, on some island in the Indian Ocean? And if that's getting done that way, fine. If that's the case, great. But what's the response time? You want to understand that. How's it being managed? We had a situation here in town over the winter where a provider, I'm not gonna name locations, but you probably heard about this. There was Korean and Japanese baseball being booked. That's great, but it's in the middle of the night, our time. Well, the monitoring of that was not being done in Las Vegas, not being done in Nevada, and then it was being done back east. Well, back east went to sleep, and it transferred overseas to Asia. Well, somebody was asleep at the wheel, and it's still being investigated whether it was intentional or not. And what happened was wagers wound up being placed after the events had started. It was a past posting situation. So all that technology is not just about how's it being offered, but how is it being managed and what's the oversight in that regard as well. I hope I answered your question.
That's a great point. No, that makes perfect sense, because really, from a regulatory standpoint, you've really got to be on top of things.
Sure.
So I want to kind of ask you then next, Vinny, is to kind of think about how someone can get involved with sports betting, and I think we touched on a lot of these things already. But these are some really good points to talk about, because they correlate a lot to small businesses too. And the first one we really talked about is becoming a customer first and foremost. So really, whatever new product, new service that you might be wanting to offer, is you should really understand that from a customer basis.
Yeah, I think you want to understand. So if you have a business, you want to understand what the customer experience is. And the best way to do that is to become a customer. So what I encourage people to, because I get asked this a lot, Vinny, how do I get into the business? What's the best way I can get into the sports betting business? What's an entry level position? The best entry level position anymore is as a ticket writer or a teller, the person that actually is at the counter. The wagers are being accepted, and there's that interaction with the customer, or at a kiosk to where you're making your wagers from an automated perspective. Well, even if you outsource your sports feature, they're still your customers, as I mentioned previously. What is their experience? Is the teller giving courteous service? Is the customer representing the company well, even if it's outsourced? You can't have them just care about, again, Craig's sportsbook operation and not Michael's business. So it's got to be understood what exactly that is. You want to familiarize yourself with the rules and the regulations so that because the first person that's in all likelihood they're going to talk to, they're going to go to the counter. Okay, where's the boss? Who owns this place? I want to talk to the boss. You need to know what the person is talking about, and you want to help protect that person. You want to help protect both sides of it, as I mentioned. You want to go through the actual procedure. What is it like at a kiosk to make a wager? Right? Is it the same as a racetrack? Is it like an ATM machine? People are more familiar today with automation, and that's fine. If there is an app on the phone, if the company is offering the app, which most are now, what is that? So put yourself through that. So put yourself in the customer's shoes so you can give the best customer service.
And really, that's going to allow you to adjust your business model need be. It's going to give you ideas that, obviously businesses have to be, one of the common themes we've talked about is it's got to be flexible, adaptable, scalable. And really, if you don't fully understand the process your customer has to go through, your business is going to have a hard time being those three things.
No question. And I would schedule, again, you don't want to be looking over their shoulder. But if you've got a partnership, make sure that there are, I don't know, in the beginning, is it monthly meetings? What's happening, give feedback back and forth. You don't want to sign an agreement to outsource it, whether it's sportsbook or anything else, and you never see them again, you never hear from them again. So monthly or quarterly, and then make sure that you're bringing up things that are going to help enhance and protect your operation. And you know what? You don't have to sign this huge long-term lifetime agreement because there's a lot of options out there.
Exactly. You're right.
Don't lock yourself into something that, you know what, in a year I wish I would have, I could have done something different.
And the one final thing I want to talk about on this subject, Vinny, is hopefully everyone that's attended these programs have picked this up on every person that we've had speak, and certainly with yourself also, Vinny, is you're following your passion, and that's really important. It's not just wanting to start a business because, boy, I want to get rich quick. But the long-term sustainability of your business, whether it's sports betting or anything else, it's got to be in your blood that you really want to do this.
So for the horse racing fans on the on the call today, on the online, it's not a sprint; it's a route, right? It's a marathon for the runners. It's going to take a while. You've obviously got a passion for the business you're in. Well, if you're going to enhance your business, not everybody is a sports fan or a multiple sports fan, but I'm sure that most folks do at some point during the course of the year have an interest in sports. You'll have more of an interest now if you have a vested interest and if it's part of your experience. So familiarize yourself with it and understand it. And again, I go back to the fact that how many people at some point or another do in fact have an opinion on it. I'll tell you, when in my time in the business. There are people will seek out when they come to a resort. There are certain areas of the property they'll seek out. There are some that they won't. Everybody at some point will come through the book because they'll have an interest or they'll hear something, whether it's a major fight with a boxing match or a UFC event, which continues to grow. Whether the baseball playoffs are coming up. And again, you folks have the defending champs. So I know it's been a rough year, an abbreviated year, but at some point, somebody is going to have an interest in a particular sport or a particular sporting event. So, the way you have a passion for your business, have that passion to enhance your business with the sports betting feature.
All right. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Vinny, about any of your favorite events or stories, since you have a kind of a long history here in Las Vegas. I just put a couple examples up there, but do you have maybe a favorite story or two that we can kind of round out our presentation with that you would want to share about your experience here in Las Vegas as a longtime odds maker?
I see that you have amazing memory up there in the top left corner.
I baited you a little bit on this one, Vinny. I know.
You did. You see, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns. June 12th, 1989, to be exact, outside at Caesar's Palace, 16,000 people in the heat. This was a fight. This was their second fight. Their first fight was actually in 1981 out front of Caesar's Palace. This was out back. There's obviously odds on every fight, and there were proposition wagers. So we had who you wanted to bet. If you wanted to bet on Sugar Ray Leonard, who was the favorite in this fight, if you wanted to bet on Tommy Hearns, if you wanted to bet on either fighter by knockout or decision, a rounds proposition, how many rounds you thought the fight would go, and then there was always this one proposition that everybody bet on, whether or not the fight would end up in a draw. And we put it up there, and it was just everybody would bet a draw, 50 to 1, 30 to 1, and they'd put 20, 50, $100 on the draw. On this night, very few people bet the draw. Okay, so the fight's going on, and it's very exciting. You're going back and forth. Tommy Hearns has Sugar Ray Leonard in trouble a few times. So much so, he knocks Ray Leonard down twice in the fight. Now, for those of you that are boxing fans, you know that that's a 4-round swing. That's a 10-8 round for Hearns. So he's got a 4-point lead in 2 rounds. Hearns gets in trouble a few times, but Ray can't put him down. Well, lo and behold, we go to the scorecards, and they secure the ring. What I mean by securing the ring, the local Metropolitan Police and Caesar Security secure the ring. They literally ring. And they lock arms around it so nobody can get into the ring, and everything is safe. I'm sitting at ringside. I call the sports book and I tell them, "Don't let anybody go home. We're gonna be paying this all night. Because everybody and their mother bet Tommy Hearns. Something we're gonna be paying people all night. They're gonna come to the sports book and then go to the tables. Great. Well, ding ding. We have a split decision. One for Hearns. One for Ray Leonard, and the fight a draw. The place goes ballistic. I mean, there's 16,000 plus people out there screaming BS, and they're not. And it didn't stand for big show. We had a high roller who was a multi-million-dollar customer at the time who bet on Tommy Hearns. He managed to overcome. He was a big guy. He overcame the security. He gets on the ring apron. He's holding onto the ring apron, the top rope with one hand, and his other hand, and he's chanting. He's got the crowd and says, BS, BS. The fight is fixed. He looks down, he points at my buddy and I, and he says, the bookies fixed the fight. Everybody's looking at us. Let me tell you how I got back to the sports book that night. I crawled under the ring and found my way to the gourmet Italian restaurant in the kitchen. I got back to the book. I looked like I was in the ring. Needless to say, an emotional night, to say the least. You've also got Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe in their second fight, the Fan Man episode.
The famous Fan Man fight.
Which, by the way, saved Riddick Bowe that night because he was in trouble. He was probably going down. That's Mills Lane, the referee there. And that was because it delayed the fight, and Bowe was able to recover, and he wound up beating Evander Holyfield in that fight. Then you've got the exhibition game between the LA Kings with Wayne Gretzky and the New York Rangers, September 1991. It was so hot. This is outside, by the way. So this is outside where we would have a boxing ring at Caesar's Palace on the adjacent to the tennis courts there. The game got delayed because of the heat, and then there was this swarm of grasshoppers that came and they flew onto the ice and they froze and they died. So the second delay for that game was they had to go find shovels to pick up all the dead grasshoppers and then clear the ice, and then the event finally went off. So those are some of the more bizarre episodes, but it's been a lot of fun. It still is a lot of fun. I have a lot of passion for it. and continue to learn something every day, even 42 years later in the business.
Well, that's great. Awesome. Thank you, Vinny. And that brings a conclusion to the main presentation. So I want to just turn it over to Michael and see if there are any other additional questions that that we can answer for the team. Anyone listening in that has something, you can utilize the chat functionality. Feel free to ask in the last couple minutes that we have here. We're happy to answer any questions that might come up.
Yeah, Craig, I don't see any questions.
Okay, well, that's okay too. So I think if there aren't any specific questions, then first of all, I just want to thank you, Vinny, very much for participating in this. We appreciated your knowledge and feedback and energy, and thank you for always being a big supporter of UNLV.
Well, Craig, I'm always available. I want to thank Michael and all the folks that were on the call today. So appreciate you folks taking the time listening to a bookie that loves to tell stories and promote our business. And again, if anybody has any questions down the road, you can go, Michael, you know how to get a hold of me, and I'll be happy to answer them. So hopefully everybody found it informative and a little entertaining.
So from the perspective of UNLV, the International Center for Gaming Regulation, thank you everyone for attending on behalf of the Washington, D.C. Lottery and the Washington, D.C. Department of Small and Local Business Development. Again, we appreciated the chance to be here and speak with you all. And if there's no other messages, we wish you all stay safe and healthy. And we'll turn it over to Michael if there's any concluding remarks, Michael.
Yeah, just want to say thank you, Craig, and thank you, Vinny. Great presentation. Hopefully everyone found it informative, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.